Good afternoon. Thank you so much. One of the things that's become very clear to me as I've gotten the opportunity to speak at different conferences, this is the first official one, so Yesenia is right. They haven't announced the coaches. There are 12 of us nationwide that are going to be working with 30 colleges. It's a pretty exciting project. We're all in this together. We all have the same passion for student success. I know at my college, completion is goal number one. We all have to be advocates for our students. I am the product of a retired university professor and a dad who only went to high school, so I'm kind of like a mixed breed person. My son's girlfriend, however, her parents, one is an immigrant, her mom was born in this country but never had the opportunity to go to college. So I feel like I'm an advocate to make sure she gets through that hospitality program at FIU down in Miami. Navigating the whole system is so incredibly challenging. I am sure that our son, who is 24 now graduated, he graduated in 4 years, but he would not have graduated if it had not been for two things. One was the threat if he didn't get through first year, he was going to come home and have lunch with me at community college every day. That was pretty effective. And the second one is having somebody who understands the higher ed process and understanding the programs and understanding the pitfalls. I know all of you in this room have people in your community who have reached out to you and said, can you help my son get back on track? Can you help my daughter? My neighbor doesn't know what to study. I have my little notebook with about 10 or 12 students that I follow regularly and check in with them. If all of us did that for 10 or 12 students, we'd probably raise the completion rate at our colleges. But some of us are more drawn to that. I'm very drawn to this career pathways work because I feel like it makes a lot of sense from an efficiency standpoint. I'm a taxpayer. I want to make sure that people are out there with jobs, that they feel good about themselves and that they're confident and that they are able to do something meaningful for themselves and for the community. Career Pathways started at Broward College really on the career and technical side of the house. Mildred Coyne, who's on the left-hand side, and Renee Law are in our career and technical area of the college. Julia Vadiato, a good Philadelphia girl, and I are on the academic side of the house. And one of the things that we did was partner very closely and very intentionally over the last year and a half to create career pathways and create a model that would work college-wide. Talk a little bit about Florida. I think one of the things that we need to do is contextualize. I'm learning as I go to the different states that we have some real advantages in Florida. We have what I thought was a disadvantage, which was our legislature, but I'm getting to see that some of the things that they put in place are actually an advantage. And believe me, they work 60 days and give us work for the rest of the year. They keep us real busy. Florida's a very large state. We're all the way down, just north of Miami. Tallahassee's all the way in the north. There was a movement over the summer to create 2 different states. It was going to be South Florida and North Florida. I am not kidding. The culture is completely different, and if any of you have been to Florida, we have 28 community colleges and we have 12 universities in the system. When I heard that California had 112 community colleges, it just bowled me over because I thought, how could there be 5 county colleges in one county? So I feel like we have a real advantage. Some of our community colleges serve a number of counties. We have 67 counties. So there are rural areas that may serve 5 or 6 counties. Broward County is extremely densely populated, so we only have the one college. Some of the statewide considerations, and I think this is important to take into consideration, we have what's called SCANS, which is a state course common numbering system. This is absolutely brilliant. I don't know who put this in place. It was before I was here. But freshman composition 1, which is ENC 1101 in our system in all the community colleges, is coded with the same name and same prefix at the state level. So everything transfers seamlessly back and forth between the college and the university, among the community colleges. So I don't know what it would take, probably an act of God after listening to this talk this morning, but probably this is something that's a huge advantage for us. Some of the legislative changes in the last couple of years in Florida, we have core courses statewide for general education. The Florida Department of Education convened a group of faculty discipline experts in our 5 major areas to come up with the courses that would be accepted as part of the general education program for the first 15 credit hours. So ENC 1101, which is the course I just referenced, is accepted as the core course for general education for communication. Now, if you're doing an AA, you're going to need 9 credits in that area. But everybody has to offer and accept ENC 1101. So there are 3 credits in each one of the courses. What we did was also color code those general education courses so it was easier for students to recognize. And those students, if they take math, if they take statistics, it's accepted. We have a couple of courses that aren't offered at Broward, but if they are taken somewhere else, they will be accepted as a core course for general education purposes. We also have a State Bill 1720, and this created a lot of chaos initially because what the senators and legislators said was any student who went to a Florida high school and graduated from a 4-year school after 2007 was completely ready for college level work. Completely ready. Every single high school student. You can imagine that we just went and gasped because we know that a lot of those students were not ready. So what did we do about it? One of the things that we did do was put in place a number of measures to help students either by contextualizing some of the core competencies in those courses. We did some combined courses with some of the outcomes from the developmental courses and compressed them. We have a reading and writing course in English which helps students prepare. Students can take college level. They may not be ready for general education math, so they may opt into intermediate algebra, for example. We encourage students, when we look at their test scores, if they decide to test, to take a remedial or a preparatory course before they get in there, or at least use some of the other many measures we have. We developed a statewide MOOC. We have a lot of courses available through continuing education that will help students just get a leg up. So one of the things we're doing is paying attention to how well are those students doing. So when we're talking about career mapping and curriculum mapping, we have to look at not only part-time and full-time, but are the students exempt or non-exempt? So we have 4 different groups of students that we're looking at when we do career mapping. Another part of this bill was the meta majors, which were referred to earlier this morning. The legislature felt very strongly that students went in and looked at what Dr. Bailey said was a cafeteria-style approach where you've got 137,000 different choices and people are out there either completely paralyzed or just jumping from thing to thing to thing without really having any focus. The meta majors, and this was partially answering one of the questions that came up earlier, there are 8 meta majors, and what we did is group all of our career and technical programs into those meta majors. Then we looked at the AA, and I'll tell you how we did that so that it was contextualized as well. Some quick facts about Broward. We are an Aspen Prize finalist. We're located in Fort Lauderdale. If it was called Fort Lauderdale College, you'd all know where we are. We have about 67,000 students. We're the 5th largest community college in the country. Our neighbors to the south, which Dr. Bailey referenced, Miami-Dade College, we work closely with them on a number of other initiatives. They have about 170,000 students. They are the largest community college in the country. So South Florida is a very densely populated area, and we have a great number of students in community colleges. We have 3 main campuses, we have a fully online campus, and we have 9 centers throughout Broward County. We also have 5 international centers where we work with the folks in these countries to maintain a complete Associate of Arts program so that students can earn an Associate of Arts through Broward College in these locations and then transfer to a university. So this has been, I've had the opportunity to lecture and work in Ecuador, and it's very exciting to see all of the work that's being done down there. Most of our AA transfer students choose 2 universities. Florida Atlantic University is located in Boca Raton, and Florida International University is located in Miami. we do not have a university home in Broward County. So students that live in the south of the county tend to go to Miami, down to FIU. That's where a lot of the Miami-Dade students also go, and students living in the north or central part of our county may go up to Florida Atlantic. We do have satellite campuses on a shared campus on our central campus with Florida Atlantic. We also have shared facilities with the University of Florida. We have one AA program. When SACS was coming for our reaffirmation and we were preparing, we had AAs in so many programs, and each one of them needed outcomes and assessments. Our vice president for academic affairs at the time said that this was extremely complex. We needed to have one AA program with a focus on the career pathways or clusters that we were identifying at that time. We have 12 baccalaureate programs. And in the career and technical area, we have 127 AS, AAS, PSAV, certificate and diploma programs. And it sounds like a lot, but everything has been very thoughtfully stacked so that students are earning credentials along the way. In the career and technical education, we're talking about students that come in sometimes and they just need an industry certification. Our college was #1 in the country in earning industry certifications and getting, I'm #1 in the state in earning those industry certifications. We have also stacked credentials so that students can work their way through a program and come out with some kind of credential that will support them until they can get back in. We know that most of our students are part-time. We know that most of our students have a lot of other life issues. Even transportation is sometimes an issue. There's family issues. It's not always economic. I think people feel like, oh, we can't afford to go to college. A lot of these students are Pell eligible. I would say probably about 60% of our students are Pell eligible. That's often not the case. They're working, life has happened, they're older. Our average student is about 27 years old. Students will stop out, but we want them to come, when they come back in, and they will, to be able to earn an Associate of Science or an Associate of Applied Science. And then for students, very often the companies will encourage them or have a tuition reimbursement program which will allow them to earn a Bachelor of Applied Science. So we want to be able to show students that pathway, that they are worthy of going to college. They deserve to be there. We want them to have the confidence to know that they are part of the community. When we were developing career pathways, one of the things that we had to do was align all the stakeholders and make sure that student affairs was on board, that our campus leadership was on board, that this wasn't a special pet project, this wasn't the flavor of the month, as Dr. Bailey said. This was something that had to involve the complete college community. Everybody had to be involved, and we're still working on that because there are faculty that may be a little bit disengaged or not know. This is a long-term project. This isn't something that we just said, oh, we're going to sign up for that and we've got it all taken care of. We've learned a lot along the way, and I'm going to be sharing some of the pitfalls with you, and I will be sharing some of the successes with you because we have learned a lot. We have an intentional pathways. We want, because of financial aid restrictions, we want to make sure that students aren't burning through their financial aid. We want to make sure that they understand that every dime that they spend, especially if it's borrowed money, needs to be paid back, and there's no forgiveness for that. We want students to take as many courses and as many credits as they possibly can, and if they can make going to college the priority in their life, that's what we want. We don't want it to be something else that they're doing. A lot of our students are working, and they're working to pay for a car or a better car or a bigger apartment or a vacation, and just making them aware of how much it's really costing them by postponing that additional year or 2 years by not going to school full time. We have a career center engagement process. We've invested quite a bit of our resources, and somebody was asking about that. I would say that's probably one of the biggest expenses we've had, in making sure that we have career coaches, we have people working at the Career Center that are completely dedicated to student success, and we've invested in a number of software programs that help students do some self-assessment so they can at least start eliminating some of the things that they might not be interested in. We know that there's a big group of students that come in that don't know what they want to study, but there are a group of students that have an idea, but we also want to expand their minds. We want them to see beyond doctor, lawyer, nurse, teacher. There are so many more other occupations, and especially industry-level credentials, that students could be earning, and they're not even aware that those things exist. So we want to make sure that all of that information is available and readily accessible for our students. Then we need to work on marketing, and that's what we're working on right now. The state awarded Broward a $15,000 grant, which is modest, but to develop marketing products. And I'm going to show you some of the products that they were able to develop, which won statewide acclaim, and now we're using them all over the state. The first thing that we did with the career and technical education majors is we had the faculty in those programs and the program managers sit down and figure out, where does your program belong? These are the 8 meta majors or career pathways, whether it's arts, humanities, business, education, health science, industry, manufacturing, construction, public safety, STEM, or social and behavioral sciences. And we asked them to sit down and figure out, where does your program belong? 2 funny things happened. Some people didn't know where they belonged and had to be kind of directed. You know, that's a health science major. So making sure that people understand where they belong within those 8 pathways and getting them on the right track. The other funny thing that happened is people were inventing new pathways. No, we're going to stick with these 8. We don't want any more. So we want to make sure that when you're working at the ground level with faculty and program managers, that the conversation is clear. This is where my program belongs. And all of the certificates and all of the diplomas and everything that we're doing in this area is within this pathway. When I first started doing this was a slide that everybody said, oh, don't ever take that slide out about the flounders. You know, I wanted to know what a flounder looked like, because I said, we got people that flounder. You know, so, you know, being in Florida, there's a lot of fishing and stuff. Well, flounders are bottom feeders, and that's what they look like on the deck once you've fished out those flounders. And we've got students that flounder all the time. And a flounder makes a mistake. A flounderer is out there using up all their Pell money, getting excess credits, not getting a completion. And we want to make sure that our students aren't flounderers. We want them to be completers. It benefits everybody. It benefits the student most of all. It benefits the college because we have completion rates, and it benefits society because we have qualified people out there doing a number of jobs that we all need. Then we looked at Associate of Art transfer students, and that's more on my side of the house with the Associate of Art, because I'm work in conjunction with Mildred and her team. And we looked at the 2 kinds of students that we have. We have traditional age students coming from our feeder high schools. One of the areas that is in my area of the college is dual enrollment. We currently serve about 4,200 unique students, taking thousands and thousands of credits in dual enrollment. I don't know how it's set up in New Jersey. It's completely free for the students. The school board pays the college for tuition, $71.98 per credit. And students, if they are very diligent and work very hard, they can earn an AA before they even graduate from high school. They will graduate from high school and get their AA in the same month. And we have a college academy on campus, on our central campus, and we graduated 350 students with their AA last year. So the students that go into those programs that are very aggressive are something that I think that we need to not only look at academic preparation, but also look at maturity and focus to make sure that it's just not getting through the race. It's actually being very thoughtful and deliberate and mindful about what you want to do with that time, and making sure that when those students go up to FIU or UF or FSU, that at 19 years old and being juniors, they're ready for it, not just academically, but in all senses. We want those students. We also have adult students, very many returning adult students. They dropped out of college, they came back after a year or 2, they worked, they went away to school, they had the academic credentials, but they just weren't ready to be in a 4-year school. Too much partying, too much homesickness, no organizational skills, lots of other issues. So we have a lot of adults coming back, and then we have adults coming back because they realize that they've been working in a job maybe as a supervisor, and what's holding them back is not having that degree. So we try to get them to select a pathway through either self-assessment at our Career Center or just working with an advisor. Our advisor ratio is about 1 to 900. So one of the things that we know is that students, the more we can do for students so that they can take care of themselves, the better off they're going to be. We do make it mandatory for their first term that they come in and see an advisor. We want to make sure that they take the right math. Dr. Bailey was alluding to the Statway project. We created a college-level stats course, 1001, which will prepare students for the general education stats course so that students are better prepared, and we've had a lot of success in students taking that stats course. Not every single one of the fields requires algebra. So we want to be but if you want to go into business, you better make sure you have algebra. And you almost have to come in at that level. If you come in at a developmental level, it's going to take you a long time to be ready to transfer with that degree in business. We want to make sure that we encourage students to take more courses. I know when I was in college, 15 credits each semester, and I worked full-time, was the norm. But somewhere along the way in the last generation or so, I was out of the country for 20 years, I came back, and people were taking 12 hours because of federal financial aid. And now they're taking 5 years to finish instead of 4. And then stuff happens. The longer you're in college, stuff happens. So you either get that promising job and you drop out of college, or you start a family, or you move, but you get interrupted. So we try to encourage students to take as many as they possibly can and focus on college as their priority. A lot of our students can't do this, and I want to be really very fair to those students, because a lot of those students, I have a lot of balls in the air right now, and they're doing the very best they can. But if they can take 6 hours instead of 3, that's what we want. If they can take 9 instead of 6, that's what we want. So we encourage students and talk to them about how long it was going to take them, not to discourage them, but to be realistic. What is it that you can do? And we also want students to be realistic. How many hours are you working? How many other things are going on in your life so that you can actually be successful with the courses that you do choose? We know that advising is the key. We are going through this right now with our advisors. We have about 100 advisors. I will share with you, as a little bit of a political thing, with academic leadership on one of our campuses. They said, you have no business telling our advisors. They're the experts. When Julie and I produced the catalog, we created an interactive version of the catalog. We color-coded all of the career pathways programs so that it was very easy for students to identify those. But we wanted to make sure that the advisors knew how to use that instrument correctly. So we used that as an excuse to convene all of the advisors and walk through what career pathways was and what we were trying to do. And their bosses weren't in the room. So they had a chance to ask lots and lots of questions, which I was very grateful for, that they asked those questions, because that just showed me that they didn't know as much as their bosses thought they knew or thought they should know. So you have to create a climate of trust so that people know when to ask for help, when they are not sure about things, and not to be making stuff up or brushing things off. And I think that that was happening a lot in advising, and it still may be going on. But I think that that's something we need to keep our eye on. We want to follow the curriculum maps. We're in the process of developing default curriculum maps for all of the AAs. I'm working with the academic deans, and I'm going to share a little bit about what that experience was like when I work with you a little bit later with the career mapping. And then one of the most important things we want to do is work with your state university system counterparts. We are very fortunate to have great relationship with both FIU and FAU, and they have been very, very wonderful in helping us reinforce the importance of AA completers. They want completers. They know our students do better than their native students. And the other thing that's really an advantage in Florida is once you have your AA, they can't go back and pick that apart. They can't say, oh, you didn't have this course and you didn't take this course. They have to take the complete AA package, which is 60 hours, 36 gen ed credits, and they can't make you go back and do anything that's a general education course. You are done. So that's one of the things we really, really enforce with our students. So we didn't have a complete revolution about which courses we were recommending for the AA, because somebody alluded to a little bit of the faculty territorial issue, and as a faculty member formally, I'm kind of on the what we refer to at Broward as the dark side right now, and the administrative side. I understand that people want to protect their courses, but I also think that it's very important for students to have an opportunity to see a lot of different courses. One of the things that we're doing starting this term is students must take a math and English course right up front. If you're exempt, you have to take a college-level math course. Students are putting that off. We were having students with 54 hours, and they hadn't taken their math because they just kept waiting for it to go away. I think they were waiting for a general pardon. It wasn't going to happen. They needed to come in and do the math. So we want to face that gorilla right up front and make sure that students are doing math right away and English. The longer, especially our high school students, the longer they're away from it, the more likely they are to fall behind. So we want to make sure that math and English are courses that they're taking. The other thing that we did was we created and decided upon an introductory course for each pathway. In business, for example, we have Introduction to Business. This is a course that I have a lot of experience teaching, and I used to tell people this was like going to Europe, 21 countries in 7 days. You know, you're going to get a little bit of everything. So I would be on the bus and I'd say finance is over there, marketing's there, accounting's there, management's there, human resources is there. But I gave them enough of a taste for them to say, I want to go back and look at marketing, or I want to go back and look at accounting more in depth, or I know I don't want to do finance. So the purpose of an introductory course is to give students that opportunity to have that taste of what is possible in those fields. If you can bring in a speaker to talk to students, which I often tried to do, I think it also creates a very real situation for students so they don't have this pie in the eye kind of idea. I used to ask my intro to business students on the first day, why do you want to do this? Because I want to own my own business and be my own boss. And I said, do you realize it's 24/7? You know, you're going to be 365. It's your business. You're going to have to take care of it. And I would bring speakers in, and I would also ask students to go out into the community as a project and be paired with a small business owner. They had a structured project that they had to work on, and at the end of the semester, they came back and reported what they had learned. And one of the questions was, tell me something you didn't know before you did this course and did this project. And I didn't realize how expensive insurance was. I didn't realize anything about liability. I didn't know that I wouldn't be paid for a year or two until I could get my business off the ground. So those kinds of life experiences and tying those things into introductory courses from a faculty standpoint are incredibly important. What happens if they don't want to go into business? What happens with that course? It's an elective. It's still not going to put them in the excess credit column, and it's something that's going to be able to help them. We want them to take a core gen ed humanities, a core gen ed social science, and either speech or student life skills if they're taking up to 18 hours. But if they're taking 9 hours, you're going to be doing math, English, in the introductory course. The next semester, you're going to be doing the next. So it's set up that way. We're developing the exempt and non-exempt. The part-time, non-exempt students are our biggest challenge, and probably the greatest number of students. We're just beginning to identify who all of those players are. 80% of our AA students transfer. They choose either FAU or FIU, and this is state data. And it's really important to know where your students are going. As soon as I knew where our students were going, I said, we're going to focus on these two institutions, and we're going to work really closely with these two institutions. And we have a link to FAU program where students get co-advised at 30 credits, and they are actually become scholarship eligible. FAU has been very generous with providing scholarships, guidance, and people on the ground at all of our main campuses. FIU does something a little bit different, but I also think it's a really interesting approach. They admit students. They will give them a letter saying, we are going to accept you to FIU, but you must complete your AA at Broward. So they complete their AA at Broward, they get an FIU ID, they're entitled to participate in a lot of the extracurricular activities, but it is really encouraging for students, and it's a little bit of a face saver. I know that we're always working against that idea, oh, you're going to the community college, you know, instead of really understanding that you're being instructed usually by a lot more qualified faculty at those lower levels in smaller classrooms, and you're coming out a lot more prepared than a lot of the native students at the bigger universities. The most interesting that's happened within the last month is the person who's in my office who works in articulation with both of these groups has now said we want to share best practices. So what they want to do is work together. FAU and FIU, instead of seeing themselves as competitors, they want to say, what are some of the best practices that you do, and what are some of the best practices that you do, so that they can share some of those. FAU is considering accepting students right off the bat, like FIU does. I think that's fabulous. We work very closely with FAU's deferred list. They will send us a list. We will send a letter from our president encouraging students to register. We have a dedicated web page for transfer students and for students who were deferred or denied, and just say, come to Broward, and here are some of the opportunities that are waiting for you. Okay, so we touched on self-advising a little bit this morning, and this is what happens with self-advising. We end up with lost, confused, unclear, perplexed, bewildered, disoriented dropouts. They end up dropping out. They end up not getting through. All students think because they're tech savvy that they can advise. I can go on the web and figure it out myself. I had a son that did that. So I said, you're wrong, but he's just one. You know, we have to create systems that support those students so that we don't have those other 900 students out there self-advising and wasting all of their money, whether it's Pell or student loans or whatever. So I prefer the yellow brick road, which keeps people, you can see where the grass is, you're stepping off the grass, you know, and on your mapping exercise, one of the questions is, what are you doing? How do students know when they're getting away from where they should be, when they're not on the program that they should be? Well, we have things built into our registration system now that's saying, this course is not part of your program and you're not eligible for financial aid. That gets their attention right away. So we want to keep people on the yellow brick road. We want to give them some latitude, but we don't want to give them so much latitude that they end up not getting completely lost before they get to the Emerald City. When I was preparing this the first time, I said, you know, career pathways is kind of like kiddie bowling. When my son was little, I used to go to these bowling parties, and I would ask them to put the bumpers up for me because I'm a terrible bowler, but I wanted to at least get a score. So the bumpers help us stay on track, because if the ball hits the bumper, it goes back on, and I get some small wins. I have a sense of accomplishment, I have some guidance, I have some protection. Career Pathways does that for our students too. They allow students to be able to have some of those small wins and develop the confidence and that sense of achievement that they need to be successful. This is the Broward College Octagon, and there's one more ring to this, and I'm going to go through some of these in particular in a second. If you look at each one of the rings, it's color-coded. And all of our programs, for example, in business, and I sent this to Yesenia so she can send you guys a copy of this. Our business is orange. So we look at the majors of study if people want to transfer, or if they want to do a career and technical program within business, they can do that. Everything in the catalog is color-coded, so that you always are staying on that same pathway. You're not floundering around looking for something. It's always, I gotta look for the light green, I gotta look for the dark green, I gotta look for the blue. It has been really an enormous help in helping students and advisors. So this will be in our catalog next year. In business, we have this little introductory blurb. You know, what's your passion? Are you a strategic thinker? It goes through a little assessment questionnaire there. Then it shows the bachelor's degrees. It shows the Associate of Science degree programs that are in that pathway. It shows all the certificate programs. It shows all the industry certifications. But what it really shows that's so important is what you're going to be doing when you get out of here. You know, what's your job going to be? What can you expect to earn? What's the job growth outlook in that field? And what do you need in order to be whatever you're choosing, whether it's a paralegal, food service manager, frontline manager, whatever. So the industry certifications are a real win-win, and we really try to encourage students to stay in the pathway. We are developing in the Associate of Science in Business some of the automatic, which is called AutoGrad. Students will automatically receive a notification from the registrar's office saying, congratulations, you've completed these 12 hours on your way to your associates, but you've also earned this industry certification, or you've already got this stacked credential. So we want to make sure that students know that they have these small wins along the way and that everything is very well thought out. We also don't want students to sign up for a job where they're going to be earning $12 an hour and they've got thousands of dollars in student loan that they'll never pay. We're trying to connect those two dots when we do advising. So each one of these, they have accelerated options in the corner, whether it's credit by exam. We want students to know, especially our adult students, some of them have military credits either through ACE or they have other experience on the job that they can get credit for prior learning through exams, through portfolios. We want to make sure that students understand that as well. One of the things that we did statewide with this was provide this, and then each area of the state is customizing it for the jobs in their area. We have a lot of ports in South Florida. We have the Port of Miami, we have Everglades, we have a lot of logistics and global trade in South Florida. They don't have that in the middle of the state, but they have other job opportunities. So we want them to highlight some of those jobs. Okay, I talked a little bit about competent advising being absolutely critical. Do we want specialists or generalists? Right now we have a ton of generalists at Broward, and we have specialists in some of the limited access programs like nursing. I think that what we want to do, and it's going to take a little bit of a culture shift, is to have specialists in career pathways, people that become real experts in those stacked credentials in that pathway. And whether we are going to use Perkins funding or whether we're going to have to pay for it, but we've got to figure out a way to do that. Because I think that we are asking people to do something very unreasonable to become experts in 127 programs plus the AA and understand all the general education changes from the state. So there is a little bit of a pushback. I will share that with you from Student Affairs because they think that, I think they think that the advisors should be able to do everything. I don't think we're being fair. I think that we need to have people that are specialists in our area. I know that when we had an embedded advisor in business who was working specifically on AS programs and specifically with Perkins funding, she went out of her way to make sure that people graduated. She knew who those students were, she knew what the requirements were, she knew what course substitutions were valid. Those are the kind of people that we need to have in all of our career pathways. One of the things we wanted our advisors to make sure that they asked right away is, what are you planning to do? So that we can get them in the bucket of AA transfer, or we can get them in the bucket of AS. Where are you going with your degree? Are you planning to transfer? Are you going to be entering the workforce? Some people just want to get the C++ certification from Microsoft. Do you want to acquire additional skills to stay at your place of employment? Really finding out what they need and what's important to them for them to be successful. We need to ask those questions up front. We have these posters up throughout the campuses, and we change them. Right now, when this was taken, the hot jobs in South Florida were aircraft airframe mechanic, be earning $24 an hour. We had that program in education. We have 5 education degrees, database administrator, and a logistician. You know, I don't think kids are growing up and saying, I want to be a logistician when I grow up. That's not something that's part of their vocabulary, is rolling off their tongue. But that's one of those jobs out there where people are paying a lot of attention to because logistics is a huge field. Look at where FedEx and UPS have come from just in the last generation. So understanding where those jobs are going to be. And yes, we are training students for jobs that don't even exist. That's why general education is important, because we're teaching critical thinking skills, and we're teaching communication skills, and we're teaching some of those basic skills that all employers, no matter where you end up, are looking for. It's incredibly important. We use a lot of social media. This is a very happening place. We use a lot of Twitter and Facebook down there, and we have a whole group of folks in the marketing department that are always sending out tweets. In our Career Center engagement area, we have Burning Glass and MC. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with both of these groups. Burning Glass provides real-time data. These are the jobs, this is where they're available, this is how much they're paying people, so that people can actually start linking something tangible and real to where they want to be going. Not like, well, when I get out of here, I think I want to work for FedEx, and I think that, no, this is what FedEx's needs right now, this is what the degree you need, this is how much they're paying, and making it real for people. The career coach specialists help people from the very start. We've got to get people to come into the Career Center in the first place, but come in and talk to our career coaches and just sit down and say, what do you think you want to do, or what are you sure you don't want to do? and have people start doing some of these assessments and start eliminating some possibilities, but leaving it open so that if they want to explore a meta major, they think they might want to go into business, do the Intro to Business course within that meta major. If it turns out that that isn't what you thought it was going to be, or it isn't something that you're as passionate about as you thought you were, that's okay. It's an elective and it's transferable to another pathway. But we want to do that early on. We don't want to do that when you're at hour 50 in your degree. So this is part of our advertising. You will see these all over the place in Florida, taking the next step in the right direction and making sure that people start to identify the names of the pathways with those different fields, what the median earnings are, and making sure that students understand that they can use the catalog to guide their choices. For the first year, this year, we have an interactive catalog. We were able to download our catalog to Issue, which is ISSUU. If you're not familiar with that, you want to look at it. It's free, it's interactive, it has Google searchable terms on it, and we use that now with all the students. I have it on my phone. I found out from an advisor that if you have a Fred Flintstone phone, it doesn't work. But if you have a smartphone, probably version 4 or 5 or 6, you're probably fine. So we know that students are very engaged and tech savvy, and they want that information on their phone. We're working on a number of other initiatives. It's a long-term project, making sure that students know it's time to register. This is what's coming up, so that we're actually pushing out schedules and suggested courses over the next year or two. There's a lot of work to be done. We have a huge institution. We have a culture of, our culture is pretty dynamic, but we have a culture, a very mixed culture, and we want to make sure that everybody understands that they have a place at the table. This isn't about excluding advisors or faculty. Every single person makes a difference, and every one of us has to be an advocate for students. You know, when you're in the middle of it, sometimes some of the things that are more obvious, probably to me, are not obvious to somebody who might be seeing this for the first time. When we developed our catalog, one of the things that we did, besides color coding the different pathways, is we were very deliberate about creating the AA pages at the beginning of each catalog page. I'm going to give you our web page, and I want you to take a look at it in your free time or in your downtime later today or tomorrow or before you get your next major assignment. It's www.broward.edu/catalog. It's interactive, and you will see all of the different pathways. In the Associate of Arts, I'm going to go through the business one just very quickly to show you what we did. The very first thing that we did before, some of you I understand from the conversation right now in the break, some of you are very much advanced in this. You already know, for example, in nursing, there's not a lot of wiggle room. Your accreditors are asking you to set courses up in a specific way, but maybe in some of the other majors you may have more flexibility. First of all, you have to decide what your meta majors are, where those programs reside, and once you have those programs in place, then what you want to do is do a map for your students, and it will be a default map because not every single program, you may have somebody who wants to be a psychology major, you want to make sure that they do some of the gen ed psychology courses. I understand from Carl, who came up and talked to us, you have 150 gen ed courses and students have lots of choices. We have 132 gen ed courses, but we probably don't have as many choices within the meta majors as you do. So one of the things on one page in our catalog, and this is something you might want to think about, is just say what the career pathway was, what's required, what are some of the additional program information. That highlighted blue is our common prerequisite transfer manual. So if you want to go to FAU, you click on that and you say, I want to be a business major in accounting. What do I need to take? Well, besides your 36 hours in general education, we have 24 hours to play with. But there isn't really much room to play with because you need 9 hours of accounting, you need 6 hours of economics, and you have room for maybe 1 or 2 electives. If you want to be a marketing major, they're still going to require some of those common prerequisites. So we want to make sure that students are aware of the common prerequisite manual that's available statewide. Then we let students know what some of the common majors are and what's available at a transfer institution. The next thing we did for our AAs, and as I said, it was a soft launch, was to have the recommended first semester courses. So we had students say, you're going to take English, you're going to take either math or stats, or if you're taking trig, computer science, intro to business, principles of accounting, and macroeconomics. For non-exempt students, we have to see where they place and put them in. So there are all of these variables that you have to take into account, but you want to make sure that students have an idea of what they should be starting with. The next thing in our catalog are all of our AS diplomas and our Associate of Science and our Associate of Applied Science. So this is for accounting technology, and it's already laid out. This is exactly what you need if you want to get an AS in accounting technology. It's laid out course by course so that students know how they're going to get to the 60 hours. And I know that that's one of the concerns today, is to make sure that you all understand that this is what we need to get, so students can basically check that list off and work from a checklist. But you have to do this for each one of the programs in the meta majors, and it takes a while to do it. To get everybody on board. Here is our accounting technology first year course sequencing. It's recommended course by course, 15 hours, then 12. We recommend 6 during the summer. We look at toxic combinations, making sure that chemistry and trigonometry are not in the same semester. You want to make sure that students don't take 18 hours and then 12 and then they're all over the place. You want to keep the combinations balanced. You want to look at accounting 1, then accounting 2 right away. Make sure managerial follows that. Don't put a semester in between there. Those are all of the considerations that the academic deans had to take into account when we worked on doing this initially for our AA programs. And we just had our first meeting for the AA on August 28th. So they're working on those right now and creating courses and maps that make sense as a default first. And then we went into, if you want to go into health sciences but you're not sure exactly what you want to do, let's look at the courses that make sense that students get credit for, and will be covered in a number of majors, not just in one particular major. So those are things, all of those considerations, that's what I would share with you in a nutshell. That's really important. This work cannot be done quickly or fast, or, you know, it has to be very thoughtful. You have to involve students, involve faculty, involve advisors, program managers, make sure everybody's at the table in order to create these course maps. But it will make the process more efficient, and advisors will also be able to help our students more, especially if students are going to be accessing the web, in this case our catalog, to be able to look at what do I need. If you have a smart, independent student that knows what they need, all they need to do is look at this list and say, this is what I need to sign up for next semester because it's already listed here. So I think Yesenia is going to come up for a few minutes, and I want to thank you for your attention. And you know, I'll send you my email address, and you're welcome to reach out to me. And I'll do whatever I can to help you guys. It's not easy work, but it's very rewarding, and I thank you.